Africa produces about 7% of the world cotton, but we are barely spinning and value adding 1% of that cotton. As at now, we are not yet there, at least to value add much of it. So ACFTA presents this possibility of increased value addition of the natural resources that we have within Africa. Secondly, the textiles and apparel sector is it's a labor-intensive sector, both with regard to fiber generation, this is at the cotton farming stage, and also at garment manufacturing. And we are looking at numbers in excess of 20-30 million people being directly employed within this sector if we are able to get it right and ensure that we increase the trade of textiles and apparel products within the region. Africa is a net importer of textile products, and as such, if we are able to start developing the textile sector within the CFTA platform, it creates this opportunity for retaining this foreign exchange in form of imported inputs into the region. Top on the challenges, first of all, is the logistics challenge. Africa is not yet well linked, so logistics costs will come out as a strong component of driving competitiveness of African manufacturers within the continent. I think Africa also needs to look at how to develop skills specifically for this sector. There are some skills gaps that automatically translates to some productivity efficiency gaps within the sector. There are those skills gaps that we need to address.
So I expect the activities for this launch to be quite lively from now onward, so that the sensitization about this program that we are launching today can be known as widely as possible. At this point, I want now to invite my CEO, Mr. Anthony Mwangi, for 10 minutes to make some opening remarks on KAM IDH partnership on the focus areas. Karibu sana, Mr. Anthony.
Good morning to you all. Good morning. I know Job has told us he has done the protocol observation, so we want to repeat just to thank the PS for industry for coming. I think this is one of our first engagements since your appointment, so congratulations on behalf of KAM members, the board, and the staff. Na karibu sana once again. So I'm going to give a few remarks, but I will leave important aspects of the industry to the sector chairs and also the ministry, that is the PS and Mr. Kidenda, who also is a professional in this, when he will be giving the remarks on behalf of the PS of investment. First of all, we are happy to host you this morning. This is a collaboration between ourselves and IDH, and maybe Jenny, maybe people have not seen you, maybe Jenny is a country director for IDH, and of course your team. We're grateful for this opportunity. And just to highlight that this year, KAM has identified 4 key pillars of focus, which is going to be contained in our business development plan for 2023, 2024, 2025. And these 4 key pillars are: 1, global competitiveness. We have to be competitive as a country, not against our neighbors, but against the best of the best in the world. When we go to the marketplace, the customers, most cases, don't really care whether the product is coming from developing world or is coming from elsewhere in the world. What they want is the best quality at the best price possible. And for us to be able to do that, we have to ensure that you're globally competitive, both at national level, the policies, the laws, the regulations, the inputs to make it easier to do business, but also at the farm level. And farms represented here by our members make sure that, yes, the country is improving its cost of doing business, but also at your level, you're improving your efficiency, and that is why we're here, because you see the nexus between that pillar of global competitiveness with the project that we're starting today, we're launching today with IDH. So that's number one. Number two is export-led growth strategy. We have generally, we have over 5,000 manufacturers. And some of them, you may not consider them as manufacturers, but they are. We've just come out of a week where Kenyan parents, all of them, are looking for uniform, and all of us rush the last minute. One of the unlikely places that you may not know that people are looking for uniform is Uhuru Market. And you go there, you get amazed because Uhuru Market was busy. They have the labels for and the logos for all the schools in Kenya. And actually I want to go and visit because myself I was struggling to go and look for my children, and someone said, why did you go to Uhuru Market? So it is vibrant. And I was saying, if this country was focusing, because you buy new clothes for school uniform, if we focused on that progressively, perhaps the whole country would be like Uhuru Market. That's for another day. So I'm not talking about Puma. So number two, so this export-led growth strategy, which now has been adopted by the cabinet, you also see when we are globally competitive, we increase our exports. And I know Pankaj will be giving us the numbers, and some of those numbers are shocking. That even though in apparels and exports that we do to US and AGOA, we are leading in Africa, we're only doing 550 million out of a market of 100 billion plus dollars. So you'll hear more about that. So, and again, this project dovetails very well with export-led growth strategy. The other one is industrial and agriculture. We are looking at this project, looking at the missing links between or in the whole vertical value chain from farm to fashion. Where is the opportunity? Where are the gaps? And you'll see again, that is part of what we're calling industrializing. You bring agriculture on one side, industry on the other side, you merge them. And I think many people are doing that, including a professor at Rivertex, because he's doing that from cotton all the way to garments. And if you have not visited Rivertex, please take time to go to Eldoret and visit them. I was there myself, and you didn't believe that some of the shirts that we think they are very expensive actually are very affordable. And the last one is SME pillar. And again, you'll see that this project touches on that. So we are very, very proud to work with IDH because it touches on all the pillars that we have set ourselves for. And this project mobilized almost $1 million to be able to execute this. And you will see that because textile and apparel sector has been identified as an arrowhead for big push manufacturing by the government of Kenya. So we are actually in the right place. We are at the right moment.
what sometimes Greeks called kairos moment, the moment where we'll be able to see perhaps movement that we may not have seen before. And I don't want to take a lot of time, but I just wanted to highlight a few focus areas for the project. The analysis of the local or domestic and apparel sector calls for an urgent intervention, primarily to close gaps to run an efficient farm to fashion value chain. This is where we bring everybody on board. The Ministry of Industry, the State Department of Industry, State Department of Investment,
State Department of Cooperatives, Ministry and State Department SMEs, everybody, agriculture. And this is one of the things that we'll be attempting to do with the help of the PS industry and the PS investments. The linkages between textile and apparel sector with other sectors. I've mentioned about agriculture, energy, and this project again has a component on energy efficiency, finance, chemical industry, packaging, retail, logistics. And if you look at all this vertical and horizontal integration, it has a huge halo effect on the economy. And that is what we attempt to do with this partnership. Has specific deliverables, specific
outcomes. This is when we'll make sure, and Jerry, just to assure you, that the project is run professionally with clear timelines, clear outcomes, and we'll be able to share again with the team. It brings together policymakers, regulators, manufacturers, workers, brands to engage in forward-looking business, governance practices to reconcile competitiveness and sustainability. So key areas of focus: sector governance, industry compliance, good business practices, better jobs, better working environment, environmental leadership, that is environmental practice, transparency, compliance, all the way from the farm level to the industrial park level. And I'm happy because I can see the CEO for EPZA and the chairman are here with us. So also this as a component to work together to make sure that we're providing better jobs. We can do good by doing it well. Improved skills and worker representation. Globally, the buyers of what we are selling are very, very interested in how we are managing our environment, how sustainable the industry is, how we are ensuring there's no child labor and forced labor in our cotton farms, in our factories, how we are taking care of employees' welfare. And this, all this, will help us to bypass perhaps what has always been a challenge. We talk about the productivity, which I think need to be enhanced as part of this program, but also cost of labor. So global manufacturers are, yes, looking at cost of labor and cost of the products, but also they're looking at this compliance, ESG compliance. So in conclusion, I want to thank you again, IDH specifically, our sector leadership, because you've been involved in this, provided a lot of leadership on this. And we want to thank the government for coming on board, and we will work together. We've done mapping of this sector, both domestic and export oriented. We actually know, and I know Mr. Kidenda, we've spent a lot of time cracking numbers. And perhaps you have an opportunity to share some of them to show that it is possible to grow this country. We are talking about hybriding the manufacturing to GDP from 7.2% to 20%.
Let's give a applaud to IDH. This is first time I would say that, are you able to hear me?
Yes.
I would say that action has been taken. We've been talking about sustainability, but nobody was coming forward to come and invest in it with us. And I'm glad that this is happening. So I'm going to try to share the opportunity which we have. PS is here, and for his years, we have Mr. Katenda. He is a veteran of EPZA, and Mr. Abdullah, you are there. So our sector is a $50 trillion market access from here, from Kenya. So that's the big opportunity which we have. We have a $50 trillion GDP access, which includes USA, which includes Europe duty-free, UK duty-free. We have a sector which is $1.8 trillion globally as a fashion sector, and out of that, the apparel sector itself is around $250 billion. And we have a great EPZ policy. We have young workforce. We have now, there are big challenges of supply chain due to US-China trade war. So all these things are there for us to now benefit and go forward. International brands are leading the change, requiring their suppliers to adhere to increasingly stringent sustainability standards. This is driven by demand for sustainably produced goods and services by consumers. Let me begin with a brief of the EPZ textile and apparel sector. The subsector has 29 companies under the EPZ license in Kenya. The subsector directly employs 50,000 jobs, accounting for 76% of the entire workforce within EPZ. It is also worth noting that 80% of these employees are women. The textile and apparel sector is the most labor-intensive in the manufacturing sector, hence the need for a strong workforce. This demonstrates its key role in creating jobs in line with the government's economic transformation agenda. Notably, the sector has been prioritized to boost exports by adhering value chain-related challenges, especially on fabrics, which are critical inputs, and that's what we are talking about, farm-to-fashion strategy in Kenya, to integrate the whole value chain. Textile and apparel are currently the third largest exports in Kenya after horticulture and tea. In 2021, the textile and apparel sector exported produce worth 50 billion shillings, accounting for 55% of total exports for EPZ firms in same year. While we have the opportunities, we have the challenges also, and now we see that there's a government which is ready to take the challenges and reciprocate. So I would like to highlight few of the challenges which we are facing in the sector. After the COVID-19 pandemic, the sector has continued to face shocks due to shutdowns as well as global supply chain and logistic challenges. Most of the companies have been running in losses. Despite the losses, companies have invested in increasing their capacities. Unfortunately, this has caused further cash flow challenges. Kenya has become very expensive to operate in compared to competitors in Africa and Asia, who are now increasing their competitiveness and catching up. So I always say that previously we had challenges coming out of Asia, but now we would have going forward challenges with our own neighboring countries like Ethiopia. And Ethiopia, though it's not in AGOA right now, but in this year we are expecting them to come back to under AGOA, and that will be a big competitiveness challenge for us. Following the shocks experienced in the last few years, countries gave relief packages, incentives, and subsidies to these business communities. However, the direct relief didn't happen in Kenya. Kenya lacks ready-to-move-in spaces, which means setting up a company or expansion takes up to 2 to 3 years. We are also grappling with a skill gap. Manufacturers in the EPZ subsector need to train and build their skills. It takes 2 to 3 years to fully train an employee, which drives up the cost of doing business. So generally, it is not understood, even by the bankers or the government, that when we start growing, we take unskilled workers and start training them. Even though we train them, we put them on machine, their efficiency is only around about 20 to 25%. But the costing which we do is based on a global standard, which is around 70% efficiency. So between that 25% to 70% walk is actually directly invested by the companies. And this is what we want to do now, to have skilled workforce which can be ready, and the companies do not need to waste their time and money to develop them. Kenya lacks, from KAM analysis, the cost of doing business in Kenya is 15 to 20% higher than our competing countries. How do we mitigate this? Build infrastructure, in-house growth, and lease at very competitive prices. Currently, and this we have been discussing for long with Mr. Katenda also, that we have space in Athi River, but we don't have ready structures to bring in the investors. So even though we go out there, we talk about bringing new investors and all, but we do not have a ready structure. It takes somebody to come in and pay advances and build that. It takes around 1.5 years by the time they start, and then it's a long process, and we need to do that. Reduce the cost of work permits, change from minimum wage to productivity incentive-based salary. So year on year, we've been having these ceremonial wage increases every, May Day, and that doesn't help, because the cost of living continues to go up. Our cost as an exporting country continues to go up, but still, neither the labor is benefiting out of it, because when they go next day to buy bread, it's still expensive. So what we are saying is that we should bring the cost of living down instead of continuously increasing the cost of operations. Reduce the cost of power from current 17 to 19 cents, but I think now even we've been hearing that there will be further increase to around 9 cents for all apparel, textile, apparel companies. And if there are new companies who want to invest in textile, their cost should be at least 5 cents, because that's the global pricing for textile. If you look at our cost of producing textile in Kenya, only the energy cost will come to around about 25% of the total cost in textile, not apparel. But in textile, it will be 25%. If we compare that with Ethiopia, their cost is coming to only 5%. So you can imagine the competitiveness difference which we have. Need to invest in skill development to export expansion, for export expansion, and be ready for the value-added products. Because as our cost has gone up, it is advisable that we start changing our product categories to more higher skill levels and be in market. On taxation, increase the time span on the 20-year corporate tax exemption, since getting returns on investment takes a long time and it's capital intensive. The government needs to intervene in export and import container freight charges. Even though inward rates have come down globally, export freight has gone up threefold in Kenya. So 2020, 2021, it was going up across the world, especially from China, and all the export prices were high. Kenya was in fact cheaper that time. Now suddenly Kenya has gone up. So if we compare our landed duty paid cost in US to Bangladesh or any other European country, our freight factor has gone up by 3 times. So that's hurting our competitiveness. Enhance market access, for instance, rules of origin under AFCFTA and other markets such as India and China. So that's what we were talking about. I was telling about the local competition now. It will come from the Africa free trade. And we have to be ready for that. There are challenges in rules of origin right now, and that is still not implemented. Though AFCFTA is implemented, but in our sector, the rules of origin are still not implemented. So we should push for that. Create funding guarantees or Exim Bank of Kenya to fund plant and machinery at competitive price. Set up good structures for cotton farming, including a guarantee-based funding system that protects investor and farmer in the process. So currently, we have a land bank challenge in cotton farming, though we continue to talk about it, and there is a GMO approval now. but there is a big gap between the financing part of it. So farmer, if you, like I had started a cooperative in West Africa where we used to fund the farmer in kind, from urea to seeds to insecticides to everything. And then there was a guarantee that they will bring back the cotton to us at an agreed price. And if the market goes up, then we will incentivize them. So that kind of structure, cooperative structure, is missing in Kenya. And if we do that, then the sector will automatically start performing, because right now, if a company goes and starts issuing this funding, they have no guarantee that the goods will come back. Set up good structure for cotton farming, including, so reduce in Kenya. So we do share the aspirations of government, and that's what we've been proposing, and we had a lot of discussion, including with CS Korea also, that we can grow exports from $500 million, which are currently, to $10 billion per annum in 10 years, thus increasing the dollar reserves, sustain 50,000 current direct jobs, and create 300,000 new jobs through value chain integration in the next 5 years, and a total of 1 million jobs, including farming, in 10 years. Full value chain integration from cotton to fashion, attract new investments of around $2 billion, create opportunities for SME growth, self-employment, and women empowerment through full value chain integration. Create a multiplier effect in the local economy of $18.85 billion, which is 2,220 billion shillings, as the multiplier effect is 1.85 times in the economy in 10 years. Increase the government's net revenue by approximately $3 billion by simply getting a 16% VAT. So when a single dollar comes in the country, there's a multiplier effect of $1.85, and technically whatever money comes in, it's spent by the consumer. So only if the country gets the VAT, that revenue itself will be sustainable. Right now we keep taxing, but we are not growing the market. So if we grow our market, grow our taxpayer, the revenue will also come. So even though the sector continuously requests to give incentive support, then direct support, and it is taken as if, oh, why we have to give that money, subsidize the sector, but it should be like investment. So if you invest $500 million, I can give you a spread that you, as a country, Kenya government will be making $900 million over the period per annum. So that is what is, I think, missing, that we keep talking about taxing the same lemons and not increasing the capacity. Create a globally competitive business environment to position as manufacturing hub. We have this Made in Kenya pride. We should make that brand across the world. Now, thank you, IDH. IDH partnership is critical to us because the international textile and apparel value chains are making efforts towards going green and reducing their ecological footprint. For Kenyan businesses, being unable to comply with these standards creates a risk of being left out of global supply chains and represents a high cost of missed export market opportunities. It is thus a paramount importance, both environmentally and economically, to empower the sector in Kenya to embed elements of sustainability. We are excited to be part of the KAM IDH project. Thank you.
So at this point, I'm going to invite IDH Kenya Country Director, Ms. Jenny Lopon, to also make some remarks on this partnership. Karibu.
Good morning, everyone. Happy to see so many of you in the room. And so I'm here, I'm representing IDH, and we are very happy to have come so far in our cooperation with KAM. IDH is a Dutch organization. We were founded by a parliamentarian initiative where Dutch parliamentarians felt that, we are a little bit scared. What are our Dutch companies doing out there in the world? It turned out that it was a lot of other companies and a lot of other partners that were also interested in sustainability and knowing what happens in global supply chains. So in 15 years, the organization has grown from a 20-person team sitting in the Netherlands to a more than 300 people team in 14 different countries. The Kenya team has been around for about 12 years or so, but we have until now only worked in agri sectors. We have worked very, very closely with KTDA, we work in the coffee sector, we work in agriculture mainly, and this is the first step that we are taking into working in an industrialized sector. And personally, I'm very happy for that, because having been many, many years in Kenya, working a lot with integration of smallholder farmers, I also see a great need for Kenya to create jobs outside of the agri sector. So this is a great personal step for me as well to be part of the development from something different. So IDH, we say that we are here to transform our markets. We are doing that for people, for the planet, and for progress. So this program that we have co-created together with KAM really speaks to all of them. We want to create better jobs for the workers, better opportunities for the workers. We want to make sure that the industry here can take advantage of new technology for better environmental practices, for resource efficiency, for energy use, etc. And we wanted to bring progress to Kenya. This is a program where we are really looking to see how we can develop Kenya as an export destination, and for the destination of, or for the sourcing destination of choice for global players. We are using, as IDH, we are using the power of trade to create this. So we are working on better jobs, better incomes, and better environment, and we also want to look at women, and that we can have equality across, or opportunity for all. And it's hard to see a sector other than textile and apparel that can really help us drive all those. So it's really interesting for us to be in this space. IDH is not an implementer. We are not really a funder either. We are a convener. We try to bring people together for a common good. We work with corporates, and we work with smaller businesses, we work with governments, we work with financial institutions, and we try to bring everyone to the same table so that people can start talking to each other pre-competitively and come with joint solutions to joint problems. So we are happy to see that we have so many of you here, and we have representatives from a large number of those different subsectors. IDH has long history working in the textile and apparel industry, not here, but we have done lots of work in India, we have worked in Vietnam, we work in Bangladesh, in Cambodia, and the work in Africa started a few years ago with the program in Ethiopia, and now we are following suit here in Kenya. So we, as IDH, we are hoping that we can also leverage the brand connections we have, learnings that we have done from work in other countries on how to convene and how to get the right players at the table to push this agenda. Because as I mentioned to some of you this morning, it's a joint responsibility. The responsibility for sustainability, the implementation of it, yes, it lies with us here in Kenya, but the responsibility to have a sustainable supply chain, everyone in the supply chain needs to have a role and needs to take their responsibility. So we really want to collaborate with all of you to build an inclusive and a sustainable textile and apparel supply chain. And as some of you have mentioned already, the end goal is to look at it from fiber to finished product. But we are starting at sort of the apparel part here in Kenya at the moment. We are not yet engaged in cotton or any other things. So we are working under a program that we call InStep, in Sustainable Textile textile parks, where we're working on environmental and socially effective and efficient and sustainable industrial parks and production. So we are looking for improved sector governance, where we are all working together to provide a better enabling environment. We also work with individual businesses to improve their best practice and their business practices, and we are looking at doing smaller interventions at the field level to prove what can work. So that we also want to be able to provide opportunities for peer-to-peer learning. Someone can maybe invest in a new type of water cleaning system or something, and how can they share what they have learned from that with others. So why all this talk about sustainability? Is it not just expensive, difficult, etc.? We don't believe so. We believe sustainability is here to stay. Sustainability, corporate social responsibility, ESG requirements, they are no longer something that is a plus to have. They are a necessity for you to be part of the business. The requirements from global buyers nowadays, they keep going up. And why are they going up? Because consumers are more and more interested. I think we are getting there also here in Kenya. We might not be at the level of what I am Swedish by nationality myself. Swedes are asking all kinds of questions to the consumer goods that they buy. They need to be in the right kind of packaging. They need to be developed with very little carbon footprint. How much water was used to produce my jeans? How much can I save if I buy something secondhand? So that's part of the consumer's mind when they go to the shop to buy something. And that's something that we need to try and see, how can we turn that to our advantage? There's also pressure coming from market players. I'm sure those of you who are in business and are exporting, you feel it from your buyers. They ask you all kinds of questions. But governments are also taking it on. So the EU, for example, are working on what they call an EU due diligence regulation, where countries in the EU basically have to create laws that will require their producers or their companies to look at human rights and environmental sustainability in their supply chains. Which means that the buyer will be responsible for the social well-being of workers in Kenya. And it will be very interesting to see how legally that will bind companies and what action they will take. And as you all are Kenyan here, you have seen that there are some companies in the agri sector that have already faced some issues with litigation in Europe over human rights violations and worker issues. So it's going to be something that is again going to be more and more demanded, and we are hoping that with this support and this collaboration with KAM, that we can be prepared when it comes. So instead of having a reactive position to a due diligence requirement, that we can be ready when it's there. So this program for us, it's really like a call to action to all of you. The Kenyan textile and apparel industry, it needs to develop and to be in a forward-looking. We need to look at the horizon. What business models do we need to have to be competitive and sustainable for the future? We have this brilliant opportunity, as Mr. Berdy had said. The market access is there. There's a lot, but how can we make sure that we develop our industry and don't take the wrong turns that some of the countries in Southeast Asia did to grow quickly? How can we make sure that in our growth we do it sustainably, both for the environment and socially, and for our country? This will require appropriate legislation, sector coordination, technology, innovation, and adaptation to changing manufacturer and worker behavior. We need to share knowledge, and we need to create capacity building programs, and we need to make sure that we understand and adhere to global environmental and social standards. So in collaboration with the public and the private sector and programs like our own INSTEP program and other programs, we aim to support the socially and environmentally effective and efficient sustainable industrial parks for better production in Kenya, to create the better jobs and the better environment for all that I was talking about. Through this particular program, Sustainability for Competitiveness, and we hope to encourage a multi-stakeholder collaboration and a collaborative effort to identify and address the sector opportunities and of course the challenges to establish Kenya as a responsible sourcing destination. We envision that through this project and programs, sustainability in Kenya's textile and apparel industry can make it more competitive by meeting the demands of the global consumer, by saving on cost. Implementation of some of these practices can actually reduce waste, and it can therefore reduce cost. If we can reduce waste, we can increase efficiency and decrease the use of resources, and therefore there can also be a good business case in it. We are also trying to see how we can improve our reputation and the image of Kenya, because as you know, it requires one bad apple or maybe one bad mango in the basket for all of them to get spoiled. So we all need to make sure that we are all together so that we can promote the Made in Kenya brand. And we also hope that this kind of program and this uplifting of the image can also provide better access to market and better access to funding. Because we believe that companies that are leaders in sustainability, they can also benefit from government incentives and subsidies, but they can also possibly have access to other funding streams and to other markets. And we also think that it can lead to long-term resilience. If we are a sustainable industry, this means that we can become more resilient, we can be more adaptable. The markets keep changing, but with a strong foundation to stand on, we can be more agile and find new opportunities in new markets. And we will be meeting the requirements of the different markets that are available. So overall, sustainability, we believe, can make textile and apparel industry in Kenya more competitive by meeting the consumer demands, reducing the costs, improving our reputation and image, opening new markets and opportunities, and becoming more resilient in the long term. So in closing, we as IDH, and I personally, we are very happy, as I said in the beginning, to be launching this program today. I want to give appreciation to KAM and its team and its member, because it's been hugely valuable for us to work with them and for them to share their insights in how we can actually do sustainability competitively in Kenya. I also want to thank the government of Kenya for being represented, the ministry, the departments and agencies, for their renewed interest in this sector and supporting this initiative. And we have a number of representatives from the central government itself, but also from agencies. And we are really hoping that together we can achieve sustainability for competitiveness for Kenya. Thank you very much.
We see the future of Mitumba as how can we get these traders who are excellent at sales, and we recognize that. How do we get them to start also selling locally made products They are the ones who know, who are in touch with the consumer. They know what is in demand. We need to create a linkage between the Mitumba traders and the local manufacturers so that there is a win-win situation on both sides. And we push the Buy Kenya, Build Kenya agenda through them as well. They have the skills, they have the know-how of how to interact, how do they interact, what is the demand from the final end consumer. That feeds back to the local manufacturer. The local manufacturer is equipped with new skills, higher productivity, and more sustainable ways of making items. And that is how we grow together. So that it's a symbiotic relationship that we're looking at. In conclusion, the textile and apparel sector has historically been one of the engines of growth. In the 50s and 60s and the 70s, when we were growing, we had so many textile, I think 52 textile mills and many garment industries. By the 80s and 90s, most of them disappeared. We are looking to growing that again. It's one of the garment production is one of the easiest industries to go into. It is a low investment industry.
Good morning. In my 3 minutes, I wish to invite you to the Loop Forum. The Loop Forum is simply closing the loop, circular economy, waste to resources, how to utilize waste to resources, and we are inviting all sectors, and textile in particular, because in Kenya there has been a lot of focus on plastics, and we're inviting all other sectors to look at how to work around the waste management process, the energy efficiency work that we do across the entire production. So it's promoting responsible consumption and production. And we are partnering with the Netherlands Embassy, the Danish Embassy, and the Kenyan government, together with the manufacturing sector, to drive this agenda of circular economy. Letters have been sent out to various institutions, and we hope you will come and join us. It will be held on 20th of February at Radisson Blu, alongside the EU Trade Forum that will be happening. So there'll be an EU Business Forum coming in, and we want to partner with them so that we can begin to have circular economy conversations towards business improvement and having business networks that can connect and begin to trade together. Waste to resources, Loop Forum. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joyce, for keeping to 2.5 minutes. Now, I want to invite Mr. Fanuel Kideda, who is the PS for State Department of Investment. We'll make remarks for only 4 minutes, and then after that, invite the PS, Dr. Juma Mukwana, State Department of Industry, to make the keynote address. Welcome to the stage.
All right, thank you. Did you say 40 minutes? Okay, thank you. So I adopt the protocol that's in place, but to avoid getting a shock cause letter when I go back to the office, allow me to acknowledge the presence of PS Dr. Juma Mkwana, Kenya Association of Manufacturers, IDH, as well as all the distinguished guests who are here today. So when PS asked me to represent him at this breakfast meeting, what really stood out was breakfast. He informed me that I didn't need to have breakfast at home, so I didn't expect that I needed to make any remarks here. So I don't have a speech, so this will be unscripted. So having said that, allow me to break the protocol again and make this a bit interactive. We're speaking about sustainability, and we're looking at environment, we're looking at income, and we're looking at jobs. The State Department of Investment Promotion is more or less a new block. We were recently established, and it came from a realization that a lot of the investment promotion activities that are carried out in the country are uncoordinated. So you have different arms of government agencies carrying out their own activities, national, county level, and you also have private sector also doing the same. But it's important to have a coordinated approach so that it is more successful at the end of the day. So what do we do? Basically, our work is to increase private sector investments in the country. And the target that we have so far is to get it to 25% of GDP. So today it's at about 11% of GDP. And when we crunch the numbers, it tells us that every year we need to attract at least 300 billion shillings worth of investments. And this is both domestic as well as foreign investments. So how will we do this? What we're doing is we're shifting from promoting investments in a generic manner. We're shifting from basically saying that we have these incentives, please come and invest here. And what we're doing is we're now looking for bankable projects. So we're engaging with different government agencies, and we'll be engaging with the private sector as well to come up with clear investment products which are well thought out, and the return on investment is very clear for anyone who wants to come in and invest. Then on the back of that, we will also look at what is required to ensure that these investments are sustainable. And in terms of sustainable, what do we look for? So from the private sector, if I were to ask Pankaj what makes him tick in terms of business, I'm sure the bottom line ranks somewhere near the top. It's not only the social dividend that matters, the financial dividend also matters for the business. So we are also looking at the incentive structure, we're looking at the laws in place, the regulations in place, what kind of administrative processes are there in terms of how government interacts with the private sector to ensure that the experience that investors have is more pleasant to them. A bird in hand is worth two in the bush, so we can attract new investments, but it's perhaps much more important to ensure that the investors that we have in place are happy. So what we will be doing is we will be doing deep dives with the investors based on the sectors in terms of how they're organized to basically understand the issues that are there and then come up with solutions together that we can work with. Now, speaking about this particular sector, and perhaps if you look at it in terms of a value chain, cotton, textile, and apparel, it's a sector that has been there for a long time in this country. It's perhaps one of the most researched sectors. The problems that are there are well documented. Possible solutions proposed. But what's the challenge? Why is it that the sector is not growing the way it should be growing? And so what I will do is I'll do a small exercise before I then finish my 4 minutes. And what I will do is I'll want to ask a few questions around this. My first one will go to Pankaj, who is in the business. So Pankaj, how long does it take you to place an order for fabric, to get that fabric, convert it into a garment, and then be able to export it to the US? Typically, how many days? So 270 days to when you get your money.
We get the money is 270 days.
Okay.
Globally, it is around 220 days, but here because of the related challenges in our lives.
So that's a difference of about 50 days, right? So if you were operating in China or in Vietnam, for instance, how long would it take you?
China and all, because the ecosystem is strong, you get everything off the shelf. So they can in fact turn around from PO to ship within 90 days.
Okay, so 270 to 90 days. I'm basically laying.
Yeah, maybe the realization of money would be around 120 days. But PO to ship is around 90 days. Our PO to ship is around 200 plus days.
Okay. So I'm laying the ground for PS so that when PS comes in, he has a good picture of what's happening. So In terms of speed to market, are we competitive or not?
No, we are not.
Okay, so it depends. If you're competing with a neighboring country, you can say you're competitive. But the reality is that's not really where the competition is.
No, frankly, even now, currently, competing with our neighboring countries also we are not competitive.
Okay, there you have it. So that's the first issue that we need to address. And the way we address that is we ensure that we have a short supply. So we need to have the fabric produced here so that it's a quick order. You place an order and you know in a couple of days you have your fabric in place, you can produce. And then it has to be competitive. So there's a whole story around competitiveness. And incentives are going to be in place to ensure that we have textile mills within the country. So the second thing we'll then look at is how do we ensure that we're addressing the sustainability issues, because by and large, as the globalization continues, compliance becomes a key issue in terms of how sustainable your business is going to be, and how do we address that cost. Compliance is not a cheap thing for the companies. I know companies spend a lot of money to do that. So we need to look at how we basically discount that cost by ensuring that the incentives within the sector enable private sector to pay that and be able to recover that cost. So earlier on in his remarks, he said that they have a target of creating about how many jobs? 300,000 jobs, right? By some accounts, 225,000. But let's work with 300,000 jobs. Now the reality in, let's say, the garment sector is that for every job, you need an average of, I think, about 4 square meters? Somewhere around that. About 4 square meters. So for 300,000 jobs, you need what, 1.2 million square meters of space? So multiply that by an average of maybe about 40,500 per square meter in terms of the cost of putting up that structure, and then you'll know what kind of a bill we have. So can the government actually spend that money based on priorities in terms of resource allocation? Perhaps not. So what we as the State Department of Investment Promotion will be doing is reaching out to private sector to get more private sector involvement in terms of developing these spaces within the special economic zones, within the export processing zones. And the incentives are already in place for that. What we will try and do is make sure that they are able to do it at a faster pace than perhaps government has been able to do in the past. And then I will speak a bit about what I do on a daily basis. So on a daily basis, I head a department that's called the Department of Business Reforms and Transformation. This department is also fairly newly established. It's been around for about 2 or so years. And what our mandate is basically to look at private sector issues in terms of what makes them inefficient, and then what interventions government can put in place to then help them scale or even to attract new investments. So competitiveness on a global scale is important to us. And how we do this is we continuously have engagements with private sector through their associations and more so through sector-specific associations. And we identify issues. Now, those issues, we then put them on the table of process owners in government. So these are different government agencies. For instance, if it's an issue to do with tax, we would bring on board Kenya Revenue Authority. If it's something to do with, for instance, inspections, we'd bring in Kenya Bureau of Standards on the table, bring up those particular issues from private sector, agree on a reform work plan, which we develop in terms of an annual action plan, and then we work with them to ensure that they implement those particular reforms. So on that account, what I will call upon Kenya Association of Manufacturers, and of course the members who are here, if there are any specific issues that you'd want to be addressed, please channel them through Kenya Association of Manufacturers to the State Department of Investment Promotion. We'll be more than happy to engage with you to then be able to come up with some solutions around that. Under the State Department of Investment Promotion, we have the Export Processing Zones Authority, which is well represented here. They have a long track record in terms of dealing with investors in this particular field. We also have special economic zones, And currently, the government has prioritized 4 key special economic zones. We have the one at Dongokundu, which we intend to begin operationalizing by April of this year. We also have the one in Naivasha, which was specifically meant for textiles, on account of the fact that access to cheaper energy and steam would be available. And then we are also looking at Lamu as another special economic zone. And then for the leather sector, working together with the EPZ authority, we're looking at the Kenya Leather Park in Kinanie. So those are the key flagship industrial parks that the government is working on. And what we will also be ensuring that we will do is build into the planning and operations the issues that are being addressed here today, the issues around sustainability. And now finally, we are running a program from the beginning of this month together with the European Union. It's called BIP, Business Environment and Export Enhancing Program. And basically what we have built into that program is a work stream that deals with sustainability as well. The issues around carbon border tax, which are coming up in terms of our engagement in trade with Europe. And we will be reaching out to the association together with the companies in this area. We can work with IDH as well on the work stream that they're working on to try and improve practices in that particular area. So at this point, it's my pleasure to invite Dr. Juma Mkwana, who is a PS for industry, to make his keynote remarks. Thank you.
We are here talking about textile, cotton, fabric. I don't think there could be a better time to be talking about this kind of topic because of the renewal. Because when I grew up from Western Kenya as a young boy, my father was growing cotton. And we had ginaries in Malakisi, Nambale. So we grew cotton and we made our clothes. And those were the days of deacons. So we had Kenyan made clothes and Kenyan shops. We all know what happened and we lost the road. When I look at what is happening today, we want to go back there, and we want to go back there very, very quickly. But we're also speaking about this at a time when government is very open to new ideas. I know that within the Kenya Kwanza manifesto, textile, apparels is a critical area. So I know I've had a lot of meetings even before I came here. I think 2 days ago we had a meeting with the US Embassy, the ambassador and others on the issue of how do we promote textiles. When we were in the US with the president and Perry was there, we met the American Apparel Association, we met the Children's Place, very keen, and as a ministry we have already made a number of commitments on how we will support them. We also, so we have a very reformist thinking government. I have a CS that is ready to go. If you have a good idea and you tell us what we do, we will be on it. The president has given us very serious commitments for this sector because we think that we have been sitting on a very important area. So you have my commitment that whatever we are putting together, one of the issues that we were grappling with in the US was the issue of AGOA, because it's coming to an end in 2025. So part of our negotiations was to get AGOA renewed. And the challenge that we were getting from the American Congress and investors is, yes, we gave you an opportunity, duty-free, quota-free, you're not making good use of it. So although we are a leading exporter to the US and of textiles, we have not really gotten to a point where we've taken advantage of AGOA. So the commitment quietly that we have, we know there's a process. As a government, we are pushing that AGOA be extended for another 10 years. But there's also on the sidelines of that, there is the steep negotiations, the special agreement between Kenya and US that is also, and at some point, maybe the two will merge into one or whatever works, but there is a serious commitment. We are confident that this will work. If you look at the global scenario, we see that with what's happening in China now, and also with the war in Ethiopia, we see a lot of interest in Kenya. And although I know that we talk about competitiveness in the region, which is very, very important for us, we have our challenges, but we also have our advantages. I see when you go to Ethiopia, for example, power is very cheap, but they can only get power sometimes for 4 hours. So cheap power, 4 hours, I don't know how you can manufacture. So you have other challenges. On the issue of our special economic zones and EPZ, and Vanuel has said about it, for a lack of a better word, we have lagged behind developing our industrial parks for people to black in. I agree with you. We, as a country, should stop showing investors grazing fields, places where people should graze cattle, as a place to invest. And my brother from EPZ is here. You take people to Naivasha to show them a piece of grassland, and you are telling them this is where we are going to invest. That will stop. Yes, so if we really want people to plug into this, they are not coming to graze cattle. The Maasai are already doing that. We need to show people complete industrial parks with infrastructure, roads, electricity, customs, even playgrounds, basketball, the way people are doing. Because that is the only way that we can become competitive. I am aware that we are now trying to invest to work with private sector to actually get this work, but we need to fast track it, because then this is one of the big areas that we need to look at. I think a week or two ago I visited Rivertex. Some of you that are here and you are in this business, if you have not gone to Rivertex, you are missing a very good opportunity, because this is one of our largest and most modern textile factory. The government of Kenya has invested in the last 5 years, 5 billion in Rivertex. So they have the state-of-the-art technology that is doing, but it's working under capacity. So we can do more. And one of the areas that we have identified that we really need to work with is cotton growing. So this last financial year when we came in, I think we had budgeted about 50 million for growing of cotton. This year, with the coming financial year, we've increased it to 200 million. There is a very slow response from farmers because they're always very skeptical whether will I be paid, who will pay. And we are working with the county governments. We are actually convening a meeting with county governments so that we look at something else that I'm promoting called county industrial parks. And we want the county industrial parks to have an element of how do we do ginning, because if the farmers are growing, we need aggregation to aggregate the cotton and to gin. So one of the ideas that we want to introduce, especially in the cotton growing areas, is maybe part of the work of ginning could be taken as an industrial park, so that the farmers can aggregate this. Busia, you have one place where you can get all your cotton. It's one thing to grow your cotton, it's another one to get it in one place. So we would like to, and I think in February we are going to have a cotton tour, and I want to invite you, all of you, to join us. We want to go through the cotton growing areas, Elgeyo Marakwet, Baringo, Bungoma, Busia, Siaya, Homa Bay, Makueni, Kwale, like that. We want to organize a cotton tour, and I think working with KAM and other players, so that we can create awareness before the rains come, that farmers can grow cotton. And also to talk to the counties about aggregation centers and ginning of cotton. The challenge you have also in this space is BT cotton seed. I think there's only one seed supplier of cotton. I've not met him, I don't know how he looks like, but he seems to be playing hide and seek And I think there's a bit of monopoly also in that area, so we see a challenge. So maybe one of the areas that we need to do, I don't know how it's done, maybe Macharia is here, or my director, how to open up more space for cotton seed, so that we have more players, we have competition, so that we can have fair prices, and also somebody that's accessible to the farmers. So I think that's something that we need to really put our heads together, so that we can actually address that issue. The other issue that, also when I looked at Rivertex, they're doing a lot of making apparels, but when you look at the end of the product, I will tour the place, and Professor is here, the CEO of Rivertex. Maybe if you want some business, you talk to him. You have a very huge investment in the production, but when you reach where it matters, where you are now making the end product, it's very thin. So it's like, I see a situation where if we are going to grow, either you yourself need to expand the area of garment making, or maybe partner with somebody else that has capacity to even to kind of, I got very good shirts, I bought very good shirts. Some of you who watched, you saw me, I was there fashion show. And everybody was asking, where do I get this? Where do I get this shirt? And I gave them his number, and I don't think it's fair. Because they're asking, those shirts look very good. You mean this is made in Kenya? I said, yes. But where do I get them? Here in Nairobi, or Mombasa, wherever. So there is an element of how do we get more value for what you're doing, because you get more money if we get more garments out of it. And the other issue that, of course, that we're working with Rivertex is for them to meet the international standard for AGOA, to get the RAP and the other certifications that would enable them then also get into that market. When we were in the US, one of the things that we were reminded about is that actually our energy here is 100% renewable. It's just a question of branding. If you look at the energy we are using, and this is what we did, and Perry was there, why are we not selling that our products are made with renewable energy, with energy that is safe? It's an element that we have missed. I know we have international certifications and standards, but then if you look at the source of our energy for our textiles, it's highly renewable, and I think that's an area that we need to put into our thinking. In terms of the investment climate, and Fanuel has talked about this, we now have, actually there's a whole task force of government that's looking at that area of investment, the gaps that we have identified. Some of these are taxation issues, some of them, even the conditions within the EBZ and the special economic zones. We are looking at that so that we are competitive, so that what other people are offering, we can also see how that can be done. So that I think there is a task force working under the presidential advisor, David D, to actually review not just the taxation, but also some of the laws that we have put in terms of like local equity and ownership of companies for them to operate in some of the sectors. I think the ICT sector had that issue, and others. So there's an environment that we are looking at. In terms of Buy Kenya, I want to buy the idea of SHA, that one of the most controversial things that we often don't want to speak about is the issue of Mitumba. Because, as you know, we are coming from a hustler nation, so the hustlers have their say. And so the issue is, how do we integrate the people who sell Mitumba into new clothes business in the spirit of Buy Kenya, Build Kenya? And I think the idea is very good. These people are generating a livelihood by selling used clothes. They know where the market is. They are very pushy, you know it. They are in our offices, they are in our businesses, they are in every available road space in Nairobi. And I think that the textiles industry in Kenya will grow by addressing the issue of how do we integrate mitumba sellers into our business. If we see them as problems, as enemies, as competitors, we will not succeed. And so part of what we'll say is, can you sell your mitumba, but can you also sell the new clothes? Because they know the market, they understand the dynamics, they know who buys, they know the demand, they know the preferences. So all this, actually that knowledge is very, very, very important. On the issue of skills, I agree. I've just come from the TVET sector. That's where I've been for the last 10 years. And yes, I always used to tell people that TVET is life. The way we lost it, initially we had a lot of interest in our polytechnics and technical training institutions. At another point, we got carried away with the idea of university degrees and bachelors and what have you. So we kind of did not invest very well in our technical institutions. Over the last 5 years, there has been a lot of investment in technical education and training. I know a lot of technical institutions that are teaching issues of textile, apparel. So what we need is to create clear linkages between this sector and the TVET sector, because they have machines, they have a lot of good machines, they have very good technical know-how. So one of the areas is to really say, how do we work? Like if you're in Nakuru, I know the Kenya Industrial Training Institute. If you are in Eldoret, there is the Rift Valley Technical Training Institute, there's Eldoret National Polytechnic, there's Kisumu National Polytechnic that is doing a lot of good work. In fact, it's our center of excellence in textiles in the region, in the whole of the East African region. So there is a lot of opportunity for skills development within our TVET sector if we are able to really engage. So there is already some background there, there's good information, there is good technology that we can then work on. On the issue of Buy Kenya, Build Kenya, because this is an important aspect, what we have said is that yes, there's a framework. Currently, government institutions are buying uniforms, shoes, even our Kenya Defense Forces, National Police Service. The directive is that they all buy local, and they're doing that. But we can do more. So we have a list, I think, which we review every year, the list of products that need to be included in the Buy Kenya, Build Kenya initiative. What we have agreed is that the framework and government agencies have to report on a quarterly basis how much of their procurement has gone to Kenyan products. So I think what we need to do is work with the Kenya Association of Manufacturers to review, to see how we can make that document and that process more inclusive, more effective for everyone. So I think that the way it is today, I see a lot of reports coming in on what people have bought. But one of the questions that I always ask is, how do we know this was made from Kenya? And so one of the issues that we've been working with the Kenya Bureau of Standards is how do we get a proper mark of made in Kenya, so that when somebody's saying this is I bought from this is made in Kenya, that we have traceability, that we have a clear idea if that this product is part of what we are talking about. So I think that we can revamp. The idea is there. We already have a policy that was passed by cabinet in 2021. We are now working towards a bill of local content and Buy Kenya, Build Kenya, and we can do more, because there is no way you're going to grow this country without growing our industries. And we can only grow our industries by saying, if something is available locally, let's buy it from here, because we have young people that need jobs, we have an economy that needs to grow. I think that we are importing things that we need here. And so if we work with you very closely, that is an area that Build Kenya, there is a lot of goodwill. We are already in discussions with the Office of the Deputy President so that we can relaunch it in a more elaborate, bigger way, revamp it. We have a national steering committee that has never met on how to promote Build Kenya, Build Kenya. We don't want it to be a government thing. We want it to be something that is shared between government, the private sector, the NGOs for issues of sustainability, like what we have said here, so that we can actually buy Kenya and build this country. The other issue that we are also looking at in that space is the issue of prompt payments. It pains me that we cannot grow industries in this nation of ours if we cannot pay for goods that we have bought from local manufacturers. I always give the example of my son. About 2-3 years ago, he asked me, he wanted to go into mushroom growing, and so he asked me to invest in it. And he had seen his friends doing it here around Nairobi. So he spent considerable time going around to Kiridi to learn how mushrooms are grown and all that, online, Google, everything. Eventually he got into it, and he was making 30-50 kilograms of mushrooms per week. And then now, so he was very excited. The mushrooms are here, he was packing, gong mushrooms, so very nicely done. But he takes them to a supermarket, so he sells 30,000 worth. So he delivers to a supermarket, and he's told, we'll pay you when we sell. So he has delivered, so he goes back this week, he's given 3,000 shillings. He says, that's all, that's what we have sold. So he comes back next week, he's given 1,500. How long do you think he will take? And he has to supply again. So in the end, he just got himself into a big mess. So he has supplied supermarkets to 50 people. None of them is paying. He's getting 1,500. So he's spending more money looking for money. Of course, you can guess the result. Eventually, he gave up. And I suspect that what I'm describing is a lot of what our young people are going through. We cannot grow our industries if we cannot pay for what they're producing. I know as the government we also stand accused, but I want to say that we have also spread these bad manners to the private sector. And so the idea of prompt payment is an idea that as a country we need to take up. Whether you are in the private sector, whether you are in the public sector, if we are not going to pay for things that we are getting from our young people, we cannot grow our industries. And yet, when we are importing our goods from China, what do? You go online, you make the order, you pay in US dollars. In advance, when the goods reach Mombasa, KRA gives you a bill, you pay your taxes, so the Chinese goods reach your supermarket fully paid. The Kenyan goods come to you on credit. And mushrooms of 30,000, you want this guy to keep coming back 10 times for him to get paid. So I think that as a country, we have developed, sorry for lack of a better word, Chair, bad manners. And so, for me who is in this space, I'm not going to promote industrialization where people produce goods that we don't want to pay for or that we are reluctant to pay for. And so, we need to work with you and your team to say, we can only grow Kenya if we are going to buy from Kenyans and pay them promptly so that they can also go back to the production. And so that they spend less time looking for money from you. So for me, that is extremely critical. So let's see whether we need legislation, whether we need a national rallying call for this so that we can actually move forward. I think that with those many remarks, I suspect my 10 minutes is over. I really want to say that I'm learning. I intend to make a difference while working in this space. So I welcome all your ideas on how we can make our industrialization work. I believe that as a country we are sitting on a lot of potential, and if we put all our ideas and put our ideas into action, I believe in the action. As a country and as a continent of Africa, we have produced way too many policies and way too many papers. I do not intend to make more policies. We really must implement. So we must move from these nice written documents and papers to action so that we can transform the lives of our people, especially the young people. So with those many remarks, I thank you.
So it has come to a time that now we're going to do the official launch of the project, and I'm going to invite the high table to come in front here. We are setting the stage ready for this. I'm inviting on the stage Dr. Juma Mukwana, the PS, to come on stage, please. Mr. Pankaj Bedi, Miss Jenny Lopon, Mr. Anthony Mwagi, the representative of MSEA, also to be present on as we do the launch. Together, requesting also, we have Mr. Fanuel Kideda, the representative of the PS for investment, Mr. Ben Olwach, the chair of the EPZD board, Mr. Hussein, also to be present, Mr. Pavin Shah, to be present so that we do this launch very fast.
Asante sana, and I think now at this point it's my honor and pleasure to launch the sustainability for competitiveness within the textile industry in Kenya. For me, this is the new beginning for our revamping, our re-energizing, our restructuring, and making a really, really huge difference in the space of textiles and manufacturing. So wacha tufungue tuone nini iko hapa.
Let's clap for the launch, please. Standing ovation, please, as we clap. Standing ovation as we clap. Thank you so much. Now we can take photos, kindly.
Actually, we launched a partnership between IDH and KAM. I think this is very important for making our textile sector not only competitive, but also globally advanced. Because really what we want is not just to build a Kenyan brand, but to build a brand that